To what extent did Germany achieve lasting unity between 1870 and 1990, despite recurring periods of division? Germany's history from 1870 to 1990 is defined by repeated attempts to forge national unity amid profound political, social, regional, and ideological divisions. The proclamation of the Second Reich in 1871 created a formal political entity, yet the federal constitution masked deep fractures between Prussia and the South, Protestants and Catholics, and elites and the working class. Defeat in 1918 ushered in a democratic experiment that collapsed under economic crisis and extremism. The Third Reich imposed a ruthless totalitarian unity that ended in catastrophe and territorial division. Post-1945, two rival German states emerged, with the Federal Republic, FRG, achieving stability through democracy and prosperity, while the German Democratic Republic, GDR, enforced communist conformity. Reunification in 1990 finally resolved the territorial split, but East-West disparities persisted. This essay argues that unity was repeatedly imposed from above, by Bismarck, Hitler, Adenauer, or Kohl, yet proved fragile without genuine social cohesion or economic equity. Only the FRG's democratic model and European integration, combined with the GDR's internal collapse under Gorbachev's influence, enabled a sustainable reunification, though challenges remained. The birth and early years of the Second Reich, 1870–79. The Second Reich was born in war, not consensus. Bismarck's masterful diplomacy exploited the Hohenzollern candidature crisis and the Ems telegram to provoke France into declaring war in July 1870. Prussian military superiority, honed by the Zollvereins economic integration, which had already bound the German states in a customs union since 1834, excluding Austria, delivered swift victories at Sedan and Paris. The war unified the southern states. Treaties signed in November 1870 with Bavaria, Württemberg, and Baden incorporated them into the North German Confederation, creating the Reich. On 18 January 1871, Wilhelm I was proclaimed Kaiser in Versailles, Hall of Mirrors, a symbolic humiliation of France that ignited German nationalist fervor. The 1871 Constitution attempted to reconcile unity and division. It established a federal structure with 25 Länder retaining significant autonomy, especially over education, justice, and taxation. Prussia dominated. It held 17 of 58 Bundesrat votes and supplied the Kaiser and Chancellor. The Reichstag, elected by universal male suffrage, appeared democratic but lacked real power. It could not initiate legislation or control the Chancellor, who was responsible only to the Kaiser. Bismarck as Chancellor balanced parties, initially cooperating with the National Liberals on legal and economic reforms, e.g., a unified currency and legal code. He later broke with them over tariffs in 1879. Regional divisions persisted. Southern states resented Prussian dominance, while social cleavages deepened between industrial workers and Junkers. Bismarck's consolidation policies highlighted these tensions. The Kulturkampf, 1871–78, targeted Catholic influence after the Vatican's 1870 declaration of papal infallibility. May laws 1873 placed clergy under state control, expelled Jesuits, and required civil marriage. It backfired. The Centre Party's vote share surged, and Bismarck abandoned it by 1878 to court Catholics against socialism. Nationalism was invoked through Sedan Day celebrations and anti-French rhetoric, yet the war in sight crisis of 1875 exposed foreign policy limits when Britain and Russia intervened. The Anti-Socialist Law 1878, prompted by assassination attempts on Wilhelm I, banned socialist meetings and publications but failed to crush the SPD, whose vote rose. These measures achieved short-term stability but entrenched divisions. Catholics and socialists felt alienated, and the constitution's semi-absolutist nature left unity superficial. Thus, 1879 laid foundations for unity through war, economics, Zollverein, and pragmatic politics, yet Bismarck's authoritarian methods sowed seeds of future instability too. The birth and early years of democratic Germany, 1900 and 1724 by 1917, total war exposed the Second Reich's fractures. The Hindenburg-Ludendorff military dictatorship, the silent dictatorship, imposed ruthless control, yet strikes, e.g., the 1917 Berlin munitions strike involving 200,000 workers, and food shortages eroded support. Erzberger's peace resolution, July 1917, in the Reichstag called for a negotiated peace without annexations, fracturing the Borgfrieden civil truce and birthing the Independent Social Democrats, USPD, who demanded radical change. Constitutional reforms in October 1918 under Prince Max of Baden, introducing parliamentary government, came too late. Defeat and revolution destroyed the Reich. The Kiel Mutiny, November 1918, sparked nationwide workers' and soldiers' councils. Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated on 9 November. Philipp Scheidemann proclaimed the Republic to preempt Karl Liebknecht. Friedrich Ebert's SPD government suppressed the Spartacist uprising, January 1919, in which Rosa Luxemburg and Liebknecht were murdered. The Weimar Constitution, July 1919, promised freedom, proportional representation, Article 48 emergency powers and a strong presidency. Strengths included universal suffrage, including women and civil liberties. Weaknesses, proportional representation, fragmented parties, Article 48 invited presidential abuse, and the army Reichswehr remained unreformed, proved fatal for stability. 1900 and 1924 tested survival. Versailles 1919 imposed reparations, £6.6 billion, war guilt and territorial losses, fueling the stab-in-the-back myth. The Ruhr occupation 1923 and hyperinflation, November 1923, $1 equals 4.2 trillion marks, devastated the middle class. Left-wing threats included the Spartacist revolt and Bavarian Soviet 1919. Right-wing included the Kapp Putsch 1920 and Hitler's Munich Putsch 1923. Yet the Republic endured. Ebert's use of Freikorps against the left, Stresemann's Ruhr policy and Dawes Plan 1924 stabilized finances, and the SPD center coalitions held. Survival owed more to elite pragmatism and Allied loans than democratic strength. Divisions, political extremism, economic despair, and unresolved Versailles grievances persisted, undermining the democratic experiment. The birth and development of the Third Reich, 1930–39. The Great Depression revived extremism. Unemployment hit 6 million by 1932. The Nazis' vote soared from 2.6% 1928 to 37.3% July 1932 by promising jobs, repudiating Versailles and scapegoating Jews and communists. Brüning's deflationary policies alienated voters. Von Papen and von Schleicher's intrigues failed to contain Hitler. Hindenburg appointed him Chancellor on 30 January 1933, underestimating his ambitions. Growing communist support, 17% in November 1932, frightened conservatives into coalition. Gleichschaltung coordination created a totalitarian state. The Reichstag fire, 27 February 1933, enabled emergency decrees suspending civil liberties. The Enabling Act, 23 March, gave Hitler dictatorial powers. Trade unions were dissolved into the DAF, May 1933. Parties banned, July 1933. Regional governments were centralized. The Night of the Long Knives, 30 June 1934, purged Roehm's SA, securing army loyalty. By August 1934, after Hindenburg's death, Hitler merged Chancellor and President as Führer. Nazi rule 1934–39 blended charisma, terror and propaganda. Hitler's working towards the Führer style allowed polycratic chaos yet aligned policy with his aims. Rearmament 1935, Rhineland remilitarization 1936, and Anschluss 1938 dismantled Versailles. Racial policy, Nuremberg laws 1935, Kristallnacht 1938, sought Volksgemeinschaft, excluding Jews and socials. Himmler's SS Gestapo suppressed dissent. Goebbels' ministry shaped attitudes via radio, film and rallies. The economy recovered, unemployment fell to near zero by 1938, via public works and autarky, though rearmament strained resources. Unity was illusory. Terror masked opposition, e.g. 1938 army plots, and the regime's dynamism masked underlying social tensions. The Third Reich achieved short-term totalitarian unity at immense human cost, only to plunge Germany into division and ruin by 1945. Establishing and ruling the new Federal Republic, 1949–60. Post-1945 division reflected Allied priorities. Western zones merged into the FRG, May 1949, under Adenauer's CDU. The USSR created the GDR. Economic factors were decisive. Marshall aid and currency reform 1948 spurred recovery. Adenauer's leadership, pragmatic conservatism, shaped the Basic Law 1949, a federal system with stronger lender powers, a constitutional court, and no Article 48 equivalent. The presidency was ceremonial, the chancellor held real power. The SPD evolved. Under Schumacher, initially radical, it shifted at Bad Godesberg 1959 to accept market economics and NATO, broadening appeal. Erhard, social market economy, delivered the Wirtschaftswunder. GDP growth averaged 8% annually 1950–60. Unemployment fell below 1%. Trade unions gained codetermination rights, 1951 Montenmitbestimmung, fostering social partnership absent in Weimar. Denazification was incomplete. Many ex-Nazis reintegrated for expertise, yet trials and bans e.g., Socialist Reich Party 1952 signaled commitment. Reconciliation with neighbors was pivotal. The 1951 Coal and Steel Community and 1957 Treaty of Rome embedded the FRG in Europe, diluting nationalism and fostering a European identity. This westernization contrasted with the GDR's Soviet satellite status, where Ulbricht's SED enforced collectivization and repression. The FRG achieved democratic unity through prosperity, federalism, and integration, successes Weimar lacked. The last years of the German Democratic Republic and Reunification, 1985–90. The JDR under Honka, 1971–89, maintained rigid control. The SED's monopoly, Stasi surveillance, 1 in 63 citizens informed, and economic stagnation contrasted with FRG prosperity, GDR per capita GDP tilde 40% of FRG by 1988. Churches provided limited dissent space, e.g., 1980s peace movements. Repression crushed opposition, yet prosperity gaps fueled resentment. Gorbachev's perestroika glasnost from 1985 exposed Honka's resistance. He banned Soviet publications and ignored reform calls. Hungary's border opening September 1989 triggered a refugee exodus, 9,000 daily by October. Leipzig Monday demonstrations swelled to 300,000. Honka's ousting 18 October and Krentz's failed concessions culminated in Schabowski's accidental announcement opening the Berlin Wall 9 November. Kohl's 10-point plan, 28 November 1989, proposed confederation leading to unity. Continued migration and GDR collapse, economy contracted 15% in 1989, made reunification inevitable. The 2+4 Treaty, September 1990, secured four powers approval. Economic Union, July, preceded political reunification on 3 October 1990. Problems included Treuhand privatization costs and East German unemployment, yet acceptance stemmed from shared language, Western investment, and Gorbachev's non-intervention. Reunification resolved 45 years of division, but highlighted persistent disparities. Conclusion. From Bismarck's top-down unification to Hitler's terror, Weimar's fragility, and post-war division, German unity proved elusive without addressing underlying divisions. The Second Reich and Third Reich offered authoritarian facades. Democratic experiments failed until the FRG's economic miracle and European anchoring provided legitimacy. The GDR's collapse under external Gorbachev and internal refugees, protests, pressure enabled 1990 reunification, the only truly consensual unity. Yet East-West economic and cultural gaps endure. Lasting unity required democracy, prosperity, and integration, not coercion. By 1990, Germany had learned from its past. Unity succeeded when imposed by consent rather than force.